Ah yes, Kirby 64, a game I'm highly familiar with compared to Kirby's Dream Land 2 or 3. I played a lot of Kirby 64 back in the day and I regret none of it, excluding one tiny piece of gemstone. Oh yes, the one that requires knowledge of Kirby's Dream Land 3. See, there's a stone cutter ability that allows you to form stone animal buddies from the previous games. It's their only appearance in this game, so naturally, I didn't know that Rick could wall jump. This is the only way to get this particular shard. I hate it. Of course, now I know all of this naturally because I played Rick in Kirby's Dream Land 3, but still, there are very few places to even have a chance to learn this for yourself in this game. Regardless, outside of this gate keeping me from 100% completion, I still remember this game fondly. Combining copy abilities to make new ones was fun. I also didn't really understand at the time that the story tied into Dreamland 2 or 3 either, but it didn't hurt my overall enjoyment regardless. Yeah, this is the last of the Dark Matter trilogy, and the director of this game would vanish without a trace after this. Nah, just kidding, he worked on Nightmare in Dreamland 2. Anyway, wrapping up this trilogy is the last time we are talking about Dark Matter, to some extent anyway. And this is the first time we're taking on a soul. Yeah. Later Kirby games would have soul forms of defeated enemies that are stronger and more powerful. And this game kind of does that first. Doesn't call it a soul form though. Regardless, let's get into one of my childhood N64 games. Let's do this. Let's take on Zero 2. So the story begins, and instead of Popstar, we see another world that's shaped like a heart. It's full of fairies and a big-ass power crystal. Cute. Instead of Neo Cortex from Crash Bandicoot, Dark Matter suddenly attacks the planet. A small fairy is placed on the crystal, and it's shot out of the planet, only to be chased in space. The crystal is naturally attacked by some Dark Matter pieces, and shattered as a piece lands and Popstar onto Kirby. Yep, right on his head. The fairy with a small piece lands next to him. Kirby tries to cheer the fairy up and combines their two pieces, but the fairy points into space, seeing all the shards flying off around the galaxy. Kirby offers to help and the two head out. They eventually pick up some allies, a Waddle Dee who may become the basis for Bandana Dee now that I think about it. They also pick up a Painter Girl who may or may not be the boss fight from Dreamland 3, and King Dedede after fighting all of them as Dark Matter possessed them to fight Kirby. The group soon head out into the galaxy. The crew finds a technology pyramid, a cave planet, and even a frozen Earth with big-ass shopping malls all over the place. Eventually, the Kirby Brigade manages to break into the fairy's planet and manage to fight some form of Dark Matter, which looks like a jumbled-up version of Zero using Kirby's elements to fight. They kill it, and the fairies thank the crew, and if they completed the big power crystal, it'll purify the Fairy Queen. The team head out for one last battle. Turns out the soul form, as I call it, or the ghost of Zero, has returned from the grave to do all of this, as Zero 2 apparently. Kirby ends up forming some type of crystal gun, which is, to my knowledge, the first time Kirby actually uses a gun, becoming a straight gangsta. After a lengthy shooter fight, Zero 2 is destroyed, finishing Dark Matter for good. Except no it doesn't, but you know, whatever. The heroes are honored like Star Wars, and the day is saved. The story is more in-depth than the last few Dark Matter stories, but it's still pretty simple overall. Either way, I think it's vastly superior to the last few stories in the Dark Matter trilogy. Given, I felt they were fine regardless, but this makes this game more memorable and gives you more of a reason to want to defeat Dark Matter. He's not just attacking Popstar, he's attacking everything this time around. There's even a part where to get into the fairy castle at the end, the team have to dive into a secret underground entrance. That's a nice attention to detail for sure. This isn't the only location to do something like this either, as one of the locations you fight in a mall, and then in a toy factory afterwards, giving off a very sterile, but still somewhat Christmassy feel. Like, you know, it isn't just specifically Christmas, just rampant consumerism. A lot of the planets are based on normal things, like ice or desert, but they don't always follow that design, and I appreciate it. Desert world? Sure, but you have a massive pyramid to explore that's very high-tech. This is awesome. It also happens in Dreamland 3. Yeah, not all of this is super original to this game. It follows a few ideas from Dreamland 3, but what it does borrow, it expands upon and makes them more memorable. Some of the music is also borrowed from Dreamland 3 as well, but there is plenty of tracks new to this game. Quiet Forest is one of my favorites. This theme is super peaceful and serene. The boss theme is pretty good as well. Super energetic and has you super focused. Not bad. Mountain Stream theme also makes me think of the original Dreamland game, and I appreciate that. The best track, though, besides, Quiet Forest, is the battle with Zero 2. It is eerie at first, and Zero's this creepy abomination, starting the trend for the series. The music eventually evolves into an epic, energetic boss track that makes you feel hopeful and want to succeed. It's a great track, conveys a lot of emotions. Sorry, absolutely love the music here. And believe it or not, I was kind of wrong in my previous Kirby video. This music isn't actually from Kirby's Dream Land 3. Well, not counting the boss theme anyway. It's probably how I made the mistake. The music is similar sounding though, but I do like both soundtracks. I didn't realize the soundtrack was that original, so that's my bad. Regardless, I still like both soundtracks and they work well for Kirby. Anyway, I had to fix my mistake there. Let's talk about this game's look. This game looks very, very pretty, for the N64 anyway. It still looks like an N64 game, of course. Yeah, the graphics are still 64 bits, but with Kirby, that kind of works. Kirby's face is incredibly expressive as well, along with the other characters. There are also cutscenes with cute interactions between Kirby and his friends, and I like how they act in some levels as well, like King Dedede throwing Kirby into the next room. Also, Kirby doesn't grab any of the crystal pieces. Ribbon comes out and grabs them instead. Where was she hiding at? I'm not sure, but yeah, that's what happens. Waddle Dee is also adorable, and Adeline is always proud of her painting. Last but not least, this is a 2.5D game. There are 3D environments with plenty of little interesting tidbits, and a cameo from an enemy from Dreamland 3. Awesome! I could write forever on how charming this game actually is. This is a big game for Kirby, and with Kirby charm is a big part of the game, and this game nails it. Another big aspect of Kirby games is naturally the gameplay. Kirby can't just fly over everything in this game, sadly. His floating has limits, which is kind of interesting to note. Kirby also changed his copy abilities. He only has 7 at first glance, R.I.P. Parasol and Broom, but that isn't the end of his abilities. Instead of having new ones, Kirby has a few old ones. I think he has a new one in Bomb, but that's beside the point. However, he can combine all these abilities with another ability. For example, if you combine Blade with Blade, you get a bigger blade that shoots out of Kirby's face. Yeah! Combine Blade with Burning, though, and you get a two-handed fire sword. Hell yes! You can get all sorts of combinations from good to bad. An electric flying rock that devastates nearly everything? Yes. A crappy exploding snowman? Sure. Exploding ninja stars? Hell yes. Lightsaber? Oh please. Volcano head? Awesome. A refrigerator? How about a slow-moving, exploding Gordo? Yeah. You okay, Kirby? Actually, the fridge isn't too bad. It does hurt opponents with the food items, and is a fantastic method of healing. And the Gordo isn't terrible, it's just really, really slow. Overall, there isn't an ability you can't use, just some are less useful than others, and some are really slower compared to others. Still, this gives you a lot of freedom to experiment, and pick your favorites. Then tell people why it's Flame Sword. Ah, but we aren't done there. While Adeline is just a support character and paints you power-ups and clues, King Dedede and Waddle Dee are partially playable. Waddle Dee is a vehicle section of the game. He has sleds, minecarts, and other things getting you by. Some of which are just slow-moving platforms that you can jump around, that's fine. Nothing too cool, you jump, that's about it. King Dedede is fully playable though in certain sections with his hammer. He breaks walls and, enemies. And while he doesn't float due to Kirby being on his back, he's still really fun to play here. Overall, Kirby 64 is a treat to play. with how explorative the copy abilities are this time around, with Kirby's allies breaking up levels in unique ways. Now, given not every level lets you use King Dedede or Waddle Dee, they're kind of like part of the level, really. They play certain sections, but it adds some nice pieces to play with on some of the levels. Even when you're playing as just Kirby, though, the settings and scenes are very creative. Each level has you doing unique things. Some levels to note are King Dedede's castle, which has you going up a round circular room with a lot of enemies. The sand ruins, which, fill up with actual sand and you gotta kind of maneuver around certain platforms. The mall, which just has you climbing stairs, but you're still fighting enemies all the way through. And even the neat little cliffside, which has you climbing cliffs with flying enemies nearby. There's a lot of memorable levels this time around. Sure, there are sometimes straight hallways with enemies, but there are a huge variety of enemies, making things more interesting this time around, and the hallways aren't too awfully long. They never overstay their welcome, which is a nice contrast to the last few Kirby games I've reviewed, outside of Superstar and Ultra, of course. Hell, the boss fights have improved as well. The Painter from Dreamland 3 and King Dedede were simply mid-bosses this time around. Wispy Wood returns as you slay his, children? Oh, man. He is piss easy, however, and the Whale from Dreamland 3 is back, but slightly altered from his previous boss fight. Outside of this, the bosses are all original. These prism-like creatures are difficult to dodge and even hit sometimes, and this lava monster is an awesome fight. He starts out in the back room and attacks from a distance, but after doing some serious damage, he bursts out into his Phase 2, where he chases Kirby, attacking directly. Actually, all the world bosses have 2 phases. This makes things interesting for sure. Take this cool robot. You have to attack his hands as he swipes at you, then doing enough damage, he decides to reference Heavy Lobster. This fight is easily my favorite in the game and one of the best fights in the series, in my opinion. So far, anyway. I haven't played every Kirby game in the series, obviously. The bosses are also hard to hit with a lot of the copy abilities, too, making them more challenging. Hell, the normal final boss, Miracle Matter, you can't use copy abilities to hurt it very well. He takes forms from all the different copy abilities, and only that particular copy ability hurts him. For example, when he's using a rock-based attack, only rock copy abilities will hurt him. Or the rocks that he spawns, which you can, suck up and spit back out at him. An excellent boss fight making you think on your feet. And referencing, Kirby's Dream Land again. And the bosses make it harder to just spam copy abilities most of the time, which adds a bit more challenge. Now hang on there, because there is one final boss to talk about. This is the secret final boss, which is also an undead form of Zero from Dreamland 3, called Zero 2. I call it Zero Soul personally, my own headcanon I suppose. Anyway, this monster is fought with Kirby holding a crystal gun. Yes, Kirby canonically holds a gun here, I mentioned it earlier. It doesn't look like a typical gun, however. Either way, this game suddenly turns into a shooting game like Sin and Punishment. Either way, this final fight, despite the sudden shift in gameplay style, is awesome. As long as you keep moving and shooting, it isn't too hard, though it does run a little long. Now, getting to this point is a bit of a different story. See, there are fewer levels in Kirby 64 than there were in Kirby's Dream Land 3. To deal with this, the developers decided to put 3 collectibles in each level. Crystal pieces, huh? And you all thought Kirby landing on a beach was the only time he could relate to Crash Bandicoot, but here he is, collecting gems, just saying. Sadly, the tornado copy ability isn't here. Damn. Oh well. The gems are often hidden in pretty easy to find places, usually just right out of sight. If you're having difficulty finding one, the level select screen does show you in which order the gems are encountered. This is fantastic. If the middle gem isn't filled in, then that's the gem you're looking for. It's going to be after the first gem, but located before the game's 3rd gem location. That's awesome. Now for the bullshit. A lot, and I mean a majority of the gems, are hidden within or behind colored walls or structures. These are the biggest pain in the ass. See something oddly colored yellow and brown? It needs the big-ass electric rock to break. Mini-bosses give you a gem in a yellow and green cage? You have to have the lightsaber. If you aren't aware you will need these combinations, this means you will most likely have to replay the entire stage. If the stage doesn't have the combination of enemies you need, well, you're going to have to go to another stage and then come back. Oh joy! At least you can exit a stage and keep your copy abilities. Trying to get the actual final boss takes away the experimentation that makes this game fun. I love the fire sword, but I need fire arrows to break open the floor here. I love bomb ninja stars, but I need to have the dynamite power up, which is slower than all hell, in this cave to get the gem at the end. And there's no combinations in this level, so you have to come back for it. These aren't taxing puzzles to solve. They're just annoying and padding. The final boss is worth it in the end, and the good ending is cute as Kirby is kissed, much to his surprise. But still, the padding it takes to get there isn't the greatest. Look, Kirby 64 is a lot of fun. Sure, it's still simple, but mastering the game does take some time. Overall, this game is amazing. A solid 9 out of 10. Don't get me wrong, it isn't for everyone, and there are small little issues around the game like combining powers being slightly clunky and not all combinations being all that great. I think the biggest issue for me is collecting the jewel shards and getting the true final boss, which in and of itself wouldn't be super bad if it wasn't for needing specific copy abilities, or having the copy abilities more readily available, rather than needing to scour the level or other levels just to get that specific combinations and then go back to the original level. This is a far less natural way to flush out the game time, and more of an artificial one. I get it, shorter than Dreamland 3 makes it seem like a bad thing, but it isn't overall. Again, a room here and there where you can pick up all the needed power-ups would have been fine. Oh well, it keeps the game from being the best Kirby game of all time, that's for sure. Not that it could compete with Kirby Superstar Ultra, but still, it could have certainly gave it competition. Oh well, at least there are only one major issue. Hey, that's all the time I have for this review, though. And with that, I'm done with Kirby Collection on the Wii! Haha, nice! Hopefully this game gets on the Nintendo Switch, huh? Just saying. Anyway, if you liked the video, like, subscribe, comment, bell icon, in the next season at some point in time, I'll be tackling only one Kirby game. And it's going to be one that I've never played, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Although, next review, I'll be hitting up another platformer in the form of Sonic 2. But you know, the 8-bit version. Anyway, see you there. Bye-bye. Also, I apologize, my throat is dry for this one. Changing of the seasons and all that really messes with me, so I apologize if I sounded a little wonky. Alright, thank you, bye-bye.